Good morning, beloved ones. Turn to someone and tell them, I see your true colors. I see your true colors. Yes. I see the truth of who you are. Or you could say, I see you. I see you. Yes, I see you and you're looking marvelous. You're looking good. Yes, indeedy. I see your true colors. The radiance of your being is shining forth and shining brightly. I see the true colors of your soul. Yes, I see that smile. I see the glorious energy of spirit reflecting itself back to me through you. That's powerful. It's a beautiful thing. I see you. I see you. You remember the Avatar? That's how they greeted the movie, The Avatar. They would greet each other by saying, I see you. Because everybody wants to be seen, not in a showy way, but in a way that recognizes and honors who we are, our true selves, our true nature. Well, in a couple of days, folks will be celebrating Halloween. But you know, before we commercialized it, like we do with just about every holiday, whether it's sacred or not, right? It doesn't matter if it's talking about Christmas and, you know, the birth of the Christ, something, a sacred opportunity and activity, we commercialize it so it becomes about Santa Claus. Or whether it's a holiday honoring this powerful event of resurrection, overcoming life, and we commercialize it so we get the Easter Bunny. And we get the opportunity to buy lots of gifts and spend lots of money. And before you know it, the honoring and the meaning of whatever it is that we're celebrating gets misplaced, and we are now fully engaged in this outer activity of commercialization. So, with Halloween, it used to be called All Hallows Eve, right? All Hallows Eve. And it was actually, it had spiritual and religious overtones. Now, when something is hallowed, H-A-L-O-W, when something is hallowed, it means it's holy and sacred, right? It's holy and it's sacred, because they used to have, back in the day, there was, November 1st was considered All Saints Day, right? And it was an opportunity to acknowledge the lives and the deaths of the saints who had gone before. So that's November 1st, and so they would have on October 31st, they would have these evening vesper services, evening vespers. So it would be before All Saints Day, they would have evening vespers. All Hallows Eve, All Hallows Eve, all sacred Eve, all the time to honor those who've come before and those who have lived and who have died and who were saints. So you have All Hallows Eve, which has translated into Halloween. And in addition, after they honored all of the saints on November 1st and October 31st with an evening vesper service, then on November 2nd, they would also honor All Souls Day. So that's when all of our beloved ones, those who were considered our dearly departed ones, they too would then get recognition and honoring. And I was thinking, wow, we don't necessarily, I know we have Memorial Day, but isn't that more for those who have died in service? So we honor them, and then we have Veterans Day, but really, we don't take the time to honor those who have made their transition. All the souls who who are what they call dearly departed in the flesh, but not necessarily in the spirit. And that we give recognition because all of us have come from some place, somebody, somebodies. All of us have had ancestors, right? We all have ancestors. So to take the time to honor those who have come before us, but who have left in body, but not necessarily in spirit, is a good thing. Which is why I was saying, okay, to honor someone who's made their transition is fine. It's a wonderful thing. All Hallows Eve. Now, I don't know what happened in between that time period and now, where it's simply become a day where we get to dress up in scary costumes and go begging for candy. Now, I have to admit that when I was a child, I loved getting all that candy. My brother and I would go out and we would have enough candy to last us until March. I mean bags and bags and bags of candy, right? And then beside the candy, it was also great fun deciding what you were going to be that year, right? What you were going to be, what mask or what makeup or what clothing would serve as your costume. When you were little, when you bought the pre-made ones where you'd go in and you'd either be Spider-Man or Superwoman, whatever. But as you got a little older, you created your own costume, put on your own makeup, right? And so you were excited to say, well, I'm going to be, so-and-so this year or whatever. And then you would decide what part you were going to have to play, because if you were going to be a witch, you had to practice that part of being a witch so you could get your cackle correctly, right? So you could eat. Or if you were going to be a ghost, you had to get your boo just right. Because you knew you were playing a part, and if you had makeup that was different, you wanted to get it going, right? And that was fun. But as innocent as that was, I think there was something fun or special about getting to be someone else, something else. And as I began to think about that, I dare say that for the most part, we are still playing the part of someone else. We're still kind of, I don't know if we enjoy it as consciously, but we are still playing the part for the most part of someone else. Because as we have grown from childhood into adulthood, we quickly learned to develop a persona that somehow would fit into who we think we should be, or who we think we're supposed to be, or who we think others and society has said we should be. And we learned it quickly, right? By levels of approval. When you got an attaboy, you were, okay, I'm supposed to do this. This is good. Or when you got an attagirl, or when you got, now that's not how you want to be. Good little girls do this. Bad little girls do that. Good little boys do this. And so we quickly learn, okay, I'm supposed to be like this. Now, granted, I know that this is a part of the natural socialization process which needs to take place, because children need guidance and they need structure and they need to understand boundaries and where they are. But sometimes in our effort to do that, we kind of squash that innate sense of who that child really is by moving and guiding them into beyond social graces. We should have some social graces. I like that I was taught to say thank you and please. All those things is fine. But when it spills over into you're not understanding who you really are, into, well, I need to be this kind of person. I need to be, a doctor or a lawyer because this is going to gain me respect, and this is going to gain me honor, and this is how I'll get recognized. So I'll do this and I'll do that, all the while losing yourself in the process. So I'm thinking, when you put on this persona, it's great to a degree, but the persona is simply a mask. It's a mask that we wear. It's the face that we show to the world, especially when we're needing approval, right? It's the face that we have been conditioned to present. I have my conditioning, you have your conditioning. I wear sometimes the face of a minister. Well, what does that entail? Well, a minister's supposed to be this, that, and the other. And sometimes, even I say, well, gosh, I want to be this, or I want to do that. Again, you have to kind of balance it. I've had people say, oh my, I didn't know that ministers could do that. And I'm like, well, why not? Okay. Or maybe you say, I'm a lawyer, so I have to be this way. And so we begin to put on this face and this conditioned expression of who we are, so much so that we sometimes believe it ourselves to the degree that we forget who we are. And yet there are times when we just want to take the mask off. We just want to take the mask off and just be ourselves, our real selves. The one who makes mistakes, that self who has flaws, that self who has shortcomings, right? That self who really desires to simply be totally accepted just as we are, without fear of rejection or judgment. Don't you want to be that self where you can be who you are without having the fear of rejection and judgment? Because even though they say that the fear of death is the greatest fear there is, I believe that the fear of rejection and judgment is high on the list, right? Is there anybody here who does not fear being rejected? You see, or has mastered not fearing being rejected? Because it's so innate. We are created in our physical sense to want to be in community. In fact, we need to be in community because no man is an island. We cannot survive without having other human beings. If you were on an island just by yourself, even with the castaway, he had little Wilson, a little ball that he developed a relationship with. Because as a human being, we're going to want to relate to something, right? Because we can't survive without that expression of me connecting to another thing. It's part of our makeup. So to be rejected goes deep. We feel it very deeply. And because of that, sometimes we will also then hide our true light and hide our true self for fear that somehow we will be judged or we will not be accepted just as we are. And so because of that, we then go put on this image. We put on the image of who we should be, but are not. We put on this image of who we are, and we begin to identify with this image that we have put on. And when you identify with the image, it is the very thing that oftentimes also causes us suffering. Because we put on an image that we are not, and maybe can't even live up to ourselves. You see, I remember one of the reasons why I didn't want to become a minister, why it took me so long to actually agree to taking my ordination vows, was because I thought I had to be perfect, and I knew I wasn't. And I said, I can't live up to that. That's going to be too hard, God. I got this kind of flaws and that kind of flaws, and I still judge, and I do all this stuff. I named everything, and God said, I know. I know all of it. All of it. I knew you before you were even in the womb. I know everything about you. But before I had that inner revelation that God knew everything about me and still loved me, still called me, and told me, I'm not calling you in your perfection, I'm calling you in your imperfection. But it wasn't until I really had that inner revelation that I was okay, because I was okay in the sight of God, of the divine, that I could take my ordination vows. See, so sometimes, we have to look at where we are. And when you identify with an image you have created of yourself, that image is not real. And when you identify with something that's not real, that's where suffering comes in, because you can't keep that up. It's an image, right? A false image. It's hard to keep up with the image or the persona that we have created and presented to people. And so we begin to live an internal lie. And living a lie takes all the joy out of living, period. Because it's too hard to live a lie, right? You got to keep up with everything. You know people who are habitual lies, you got to keep, what did I say then? Did I say that? Or how am I being here, right? It's difficult. It's hard. And then we begin to feel like an imposter. And after a while, we begin to feel like a stranger in a strange land in our own bodies and in our own beings with our own lives. Out of touch, disconnected. And when we are out of touch and we're disconnected, that's when stuff starts to happen. Stuff goes wrong, right? It goes wrong. But what if we could tune in to a different image of ourselves? Not the one that's been fashioned as the world has told us we should create. But what if we were to begin to actually identify not with our personalities or the persona, but with our individuality? That aspect of us that is made in the image and after the likeness of the divine. Or if I'm bold enough, I'll say that's made in the image and after the likeness of God. Sometimes that thought is too deep for people. That we would actually say, well, I'm created in the image and after the likeness of God. So for those who can't handle that, I'll say of the divine. That might feel a little better for you. But listen to that truth. I want to read, that comes from Genesis, and so I'm not going to read the traditional version that comes from King James, because it just says, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. And then it says, male and female, he created them. And most of the time, my traditional colleagues are thinking only about our outer, that God is talking about only our outer exterior, male and female, but he's talking about our inner nature. He's talking about our image, right? The reflection of all the world, not just the physical, but our spiritual image, our spiritual nature. So this is how the Message puts it. This is Genesis 26 through 31. And God spoke, let us make human beings in our image, make them reflecting our nature, so that they can be responsible for the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of the earth. God created human beings. He created them godlike, reflecting God's nature. He created them male and female. God blessed them, prosper, reproduce, fill the earth, take charge, be responsible for the fish in the sea and the birds in the air, and for every living thing that moves upon the face of the earth. Then God said, I've given you every sort of seed-bearing plant on earth and every kind of fruit-bearing tree, giving them to you for food. To all animals and all birds, everything that moves and breathes, I give whatever grows out of the ground for food. And there it was. God looked over everything he had made. It was so good, so very good. It was evening. It was morning, day 6. I love the way the Message puts that. It's powerful. I've created them in my nature, a reflection of who I am, and actually of who we are, because it says, let us. In that divine feminine, that divine masculine, all the qualities of being. So if God is divine, then we too must be divine. Because we are made in that image. And it says we're reflecting God-like qualities. And so while we are not necessarily God, everything that God is within us. Creative energy, the goodness of God, beauty, power, love, peace, dominion over the manifest realm. The earth is the manifest realm. You have dominion over what is seen out here, birds, fish, those are all levels of thoughts. You have dominion to take charge of that, to take charge of your life, because you have the very spirit and power of God within you. And we are to reflect that, to be that. That is our true nature. That is our true expression. And what if, friends, what if we were to begin to show up in life like the image, the real image of who we are? Not the image we've been conditioned to be, but the image that those little ones who are coming to Sunday school, we tell them who they are. You're not just little Mary and little Johnny. You are a creation of the Most High God. See, if you heard that, and if that was placed into your spirit, From when you could see and think and talk as a little one, imagine how you would grow. Imagine how you would allow yourself to expand to become your greatest self, because you would know from the very beginning. What if we were to begin to show up like that, not in our personality, but in our individuality, which is the image of the divine, which is our particular expression of God in and through and as me. It's my individual nature, my individual expression of the Most High. See, your personality, your persona changes. It changes because it's temporal. It's based on this outer exterior, outer circumstances, outer situations. But what if you could put on that part of you that has been empowered from within, that spiritual nature, your spiritual self, that changeless aspect, because that's what's real. The only thing that is real in you is that which is everlasting and changeless, and that's the Spirit of God in you. Everything else is temporal. Everything else is really a false image. You want to talk about fake news? That's some fake stuff we showing up. It's your fake self. We all have a fake self we showing, right? A fake self. But this self, this individuality is the real of you. It's that aspect of you that stands out from God. See, to exist means to exist. It's an existential existence is the exit out of God. That's what that means. And so can you imagine when you really exit out, when you exist, you exit out of God and from God as your true self, as your whole and complete self. You stand forth from that self that has been equipped from on high, that self that has everything that it needs to be successful, to take dominion over the things of the earth, the manifest realm. This is the part of who we really are. It's the higher perspective. Therefore, when we come from this higher perspective, we can make higher choices. We can take higher actions. We become fearless and faithful. See, because we've got dominion. We've been given that, so we can step up into our greater selves and not worry about whether you're meeting this one or that one's expectations. I don't have expectations. I have existence. Existence in and through from God, and I have power over this limiting sense of the world, the lower consciousness, my lower nature. And so when you begin to identify with the real of you, and if it's real, it's everlasting, and what is everlasting in you is the Spirit. It's not this flesh, because this is going to die, this is going to fade, but the soul of you, see, the consciousness of who you are lives on. And when you begin to live, not after you die, but while you are living in this manifest realm, when you begin to live life from within to without, your soul begins to reflect the beauty of the divine. That's what we want to do. She's saying, this little light of mine is saying, this is my soul. This is who I am in God. This is how I'm shining and showing up. When you do that, those innate qualities of being, the qualities that are placed in us. Mr. Filmer used to talk about these 12 powers, these 12 qualities of faith and strength and wisdom and love and power and imagination, understanding, illumination, will, order, zeal, life itself. All of these powers are within us. And when we let those inner qualities exit out of God, from within us into the world to shine forth, all of a sudden, we are showing up in our Christ nature. We're showing up in our Christ consciousness. We are showing up as powerful divine beings, spiritual beings, expressions and emanations of God, of the one true God. And that would be our true self. That's the self that's authentic, that is creative, that is fearless and faithful, that moves throughout life with a greater ease and grace, moves with the assurance in all situations and all things. Everything is in divine and perfect order because the expression of God is present. The expression of good is present in me and in my life and in all of my affairs. I'm not afraid to be my true self. Turn to someone and tell them, I am unapologetically my true self. I am unapologetically my true self. I am unapologetically my true self. I ain't gonna make an excuse for how I'm showing up. I'm showing up like God. So it's time, when others are going to be putting on the mask in a couple of days, we're going to take ours off. We're going to take ours off and reveal the beauty of who we are. I behold the Christ in you. Here the life of God I see. I can see you whole and free. See, just as God created you to be, so will the real you come forth. Stand forth in the beauty of your soul and be yourself. Blessings and namaste. Blessings and namaste.